Hello, everybody, and good morning. I just want to thank you all for being here. I really appreciate you are my support. You are the reason why I'm here, and I just wanted to thank you for coming in and letting me talk to you and show you all of the really cool things that I've been able to do to get me to this moment today. So a little bit of a background. So this is me. Some really cool pictures I got up here. Really emphasizing my family, travel. I love to be outside. I've done some really cool stuff outside. Despite all of those animals being dead, I am not just a killer. I am a conservationist. I couldn't find any of the live ones, but they're all sleeping, I promise. But yeah, so these are some really cool places I've been. North Carolina, Florida, in the Everglades, and then in South Africa. We have England and then Disney that I was just recently there over Thanksgiving break. I have my friends as well. They're a huge support system. Some of them are sitting here in the classroom. Some of them are on Zoom. So I want to thank everybody on Zoom for coming in today as well. And then as we can see, I had a lifelong dream when I was a little child to be a cowboy. That did not happen. I became an agriculture educator, so I stayed in the same realm. But in the long run, that still is a dream, and we might get there one day. So as Dr. Curry said, I have three questions that I have to answer today. Who do I aspire to be as an educator? What experiential education opportunities have I engaged in to become a better agriculture educator? And how am I prepared to maximize my student teaching internship opportunity at Otto Eldred? We're going to jump right into that first one, and we're going to start with my teaching philosophy. So as we look at this, we kind of see how it's all a big circle with a bunch of circles overlapping. And if anybody knows anything about agriculture education, we see the three-circle model. And that really stuck to me, and I really wanted my teaching philosophy to kind of commemorate that and be around that, but I couldn't just fit it to three, so I had to fit five. I want you to take some time and look at that as I really talk about one of those circles, which is promoting curiosity. And to me, that is deep down to my bones what I want to do as a teacher. I want to get my kids to be nerdy. Everybody went through high school and they're like, we don't want to be a nerd. Like nerds are weird, nerds are blah, blah, blah. I want my kids to be the nerds. I want them to really want to dig deep and find something that they're passionate about. And I want to do that by promoting curiosity inside my classroom, have them dive deep and challenge themselves as we go through. Now we have my classroom management. Again, you take time and look over that as I talk about the consequences. To me, I like to handle a lot of things in-house. I like to, what happens in my classroom is because it's my classroom and it's happening. And so if it's in my classroom, I want to be the first one to deal with it. So we start out with a verbal warning. I just go up to them and be like, hey, come on, what are we doing here? And then the second one, now we're having a one-on-one chat, and I get to use that dreaded mom look of disappointment that I've seen all throughout my life a few times. Not too much, but it's happened. And I know it works. And trust me, it does work. And so like I want to take that and I want to use it in my classroom so that my kids understand that, hey, I understand things can get rowdy, but we gotta wrap it back up. And now if there's a third time, now I got to go out of house, but we're still having that one-on-two chat with an administrator in my classroom, because again, what happens in my classroom, I want to be in my classroom and stay in my classroom because I do want to help and support that kid get better as we go through. And then the fourth offense, obviously, if we're doing it 4 times, we're going to have to seek out other help, because what I've done the best that I can do to help that child get to get them back on the right course. But once it happens the 4th time, then we're going to have to go look elsewhere. Some other things I would like to highlight: my expectations, bell to bell. I want to be working from the time they walk into my classroom to 5 minutes after that bell rang. I don't want my kids to be late to the next class, but I'm going to chuckle inside if they are, because I want them to be wanting every single moment in my classroom to be important, to be intentional. I want them to learn. We're not going to goof off. We're going to have fun, but we're going to be professional as we're doing it with intent. So now I have my model program curriculum. So what this is kind of, if I were to start a program myself, this is kind of how the design of it would look for my students. So year 1, as freshmen or whenever they decide to start, everybody would go through an intro to ag science. This would be a very broad subject where we'd hit on pretty much everything in the ag science realm, and allow them to really find some cool things within the ag to get them interested. Moving on to year 2, we kind of branch off into 3 segments: ag mech, plant sci, and animal sci. This it gets a little bit more specific. They're doing more specific content areas within that. And then we dive into year 3 and it branches off even more, and year 4 branches off even more. One other thing that I really want to incorporate into this is as we move on, we're doing less me teaching and more they're doing self-learning. So if we know about SAE, which we'll jump in here shortly, my year 4, I want my students to doing almost purely self-learning as we go through a lot of SAE projects, a lot of self-research projects, but also me being there to help them find that next step as well. Within my AgMech program, this is a AgMech 1, so it'd be the second year that they'd be doing, and this might be a project that I might have them do, which involves ag construction. This year is a mini cornhole board. I like to say it's a way to get really good at the game, because if you can do well at the cornhole board on this size, then you can really do well at the cornhole board on a normal size. But yeah, so this cost me $7 to make this side, and then another $7 to make on the other side. So it's less than $15, which is what we were asked to do. So it's a pretty cheap project to get really good at cornhole. But yeah, so what this allows my students to do is cut and route and sand and drill a lot of wood materials, but it allows them to use a bunch of the machines in my shop and allows them to learn as we go through. My greenhouse facility that I would love to have at my program, this is a dream that I would love to have. I want a massive greenhouse that I can literally turn into my classroom. I want to be able to go outside in the winter and we sit in here and it's 65 degrees and we're outside and we're looking at plants. Maybe we're not even looking at plants. We're going over animal science, but we're doing it in the greenhouse because we're just outside and we're not inside the 4 walls of a classroom that are all the same color like this one. Some cool things that I would love to incorporate in this greenhouse is I have the hydroponic system and I have the aquaponic system. This allows me to not only be nerdy about the things that I'm really into, but also allows my students to use this as an SAE project in their future if they're allowed to use it. And I hope to have top-notch equipment and stuff so they really can dive deep in with the research. So now we're going to talk about SAE integration. I kind of hit on this a little bit earlier. So for me, and one thing that I'm really lucky to have is Otto Eldred is really based on, they really dive deep in it up there, which is one of the reasons why I am going there. As we can look through the pathways here, how SAE works, for some of you that might not know, is it allows the students to, so what an SAE is supervised agriculture experience. And it allows the students to really develop skills and knowledge and content that allows them to take it into future careers and curriculum after high school. So how does that kind of work? Well, they have a foundational SAE, which might be a little bit research-based. It's kind of more basic on the side, but they're still really learning. So they're growing, they're getting coaching and feedback from me as their advisor, but also their supervisor that they might reach out to in the community. And then they can dive in, year 3 or year 4, they're getting into an immersive SAE. Now they're going outside of the classroom and they're doing entrepreneurships, they're doing research, they're doing internships. They're really reaching out in the community, involving in the community. And this is the stuff where I would go on visits and really check out what they're doing. But it's mostly on their time, on their dime for the most part. So that being said, on their dime, they're learning financial literacy, how to budget, how to use money, how they're going to, afford all of this stuff in the long run. Inside my classroom, we're going to have SAE Fridays every 2 weeks, which allows them to show me that they're doing the right thing. This is kind of my grading part. I want to make sure my students aren't, 2 months behind, and then now we're running into problems that way. Moving on, we have FFA integration. This is the part that I really am looking forward to as an ag ed program, being an FFA advisor. One thing that I really want to hit on is I want to encourage membership. I'm not going to force membership. How I do that is I want my kids to want to be in the FFA. I'm not my students that go through my ag ed program, I'm not going to be like, oh, you need to do this, this, and this. You need to run for office, or you need to be on this committee. If they don't want to do it, then I'm not going to force them to do it, because I don't want students in my program or in my FFA that don't want to be there. A lot of times that causes issues. A lot of times they just, you lose that connection you have with that students. One thing that I would like to highlight on is I want my officers to be different than my committees. I don't want my FFA chapter officers to be my committee chairs, to be the people that are running committees. I want them to be kind of in the broad spectrum, not above everybody, but like kind of highlighting everything, but they can bounce around in each committee and learn what the committees are doing. But I want my members to be a part of that, so they're not just watching chapter officers do everything. Career development and leadership events. This is another really cool thing that I like to do because it allows me to do one of my lifelong dreams and coach. I have been competitive my entire life, except when it came to our fantasy football league that I started this year. I kind of dropped the ball on that one, but I promise in everything else, I am one of the most competitive persons out there. So having this element, in FFA really speaks to me and kind of allows me to be who I am in the coaching aspect. That being said, one of the challenges that I've set for myself is not to coach everything. So one of the things that I really thought would be cool is to have my students that form a team go out and search for a coach. They have to bring somebody back to me and said, I want this person to coach me. Because it's one of those things that what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. So if they want to, do the ENR competition and they go searching for a coach, I'm going to tell them, you might want to come to me, but that's okay if you don't. But that being said, there might be somebody out there that's better than me, and I can still advise and hold team practices and help them develop, but I want them to go reach out and kind of network with other people. Speaking of networking, we dive into conventions and conferences going at the local, state, and national level. I really want my students to get outside of the four walls of their district. I want them to explore, and this doesn't get us the world, but the country at least when we go to nationals, and see that there's more than just what's happening in their district at their school. I was able to do this with FFA. It helped me, learn that there are so many different types of people out there, and it allowed me to be a better person, a better friend, a better coworker, everything. But just learning all the different kinds of people, all the different styles of people, cultures, and all that. Marketing the program. So I got some words up here, but one of the really things that I really kind of like been talking about myself is I want my program to market for itself. Because I know if I have to go out and reach for kids, I think of it as a way of reaching over the kids that I have sitting in front of me, and I'm not doing enough for them. So the way I think about it is if I get my kids that are in front of me that already are on board, even more on board, and they go talk to their friends, and then those friends talk to their friends, I haven't done anything except for talk to the people that are already in front of me. So so all of this are great ideas, utilizing student experience that I have up here. Like I'm still going to do that, but the way down and dirty, I want my kids to speak for me. I want them to go out and do all of this, and I just get to sit back and teach and have fun. And in the long run, I go from maybe having 20 kids to over 200 people applying, and that would be a dream one day. But we'll get there eventually. I do have a really cool video that I made with my cohort member Caleb. We don't really have time to play it today, but if anybody's interested, that QR code on the paper and that was on the slideshow in the beginning, that is on there. It's a funny video. You might laugh. Moving on, we're going to get into community integration, how I'm bringing that community into my classroom. And a lot of it's going to be through community-based units and community-based lessons. What this looks like is an example. So in my greenhouse management class that's within my plant science curriculum in my year 3, I'll have a local greenhouse manager from a local floral shop or something come in and kind of give all the kids the ins and outs of what he does on an everyday basis. After that, after he goes and leaves, we'll spend the next couple of weeks going over like, hey, this is the nutrients that we have to do. Maybe we'll go out and plant these plants and do everything, from what he's talked about. And we're going to do it in our classroom. I'm going to teach them the content and to be able to do all this. At the end of the year, we're going to hold a local farm to table stand where everybody in the community can come in, can come in and look at all of these plants and stuff. They can buy them. Maybe we'll donate them. I haven't really decided how all that works because fundraiser stuff. But the important part of it is the education part that the parents and the community are also taking home with them. Because maybe we do microgreens as an example. with those microgreens, they'll get a recipe to use it in a salad or in another homemade dish or something. But also there might be instructions on how they can grow microgreens at their own home. So there's that as well, is this the importance of bringing in the community to kind of highlight what's going on, have the students learn what's going on, or get the content in order to be that community member in the future. And then after that, they bring the community back in, and the students are teaching the community something else. Now we're moving on to the second question with some experiential education opportunities I've engaged in to become a better agriculture educator. These are my 3 top courses that I've done while I was here. Our PTM 430 with Dr. Lucy McLean was teaching environmental methods and materials in an outdoor setting. What this allowed me to do is teach 4th and 5th graders out at Shavers Creek, pretty much in the outdoor setting. I got to use the outdoors as my classroom, the outdoors as my materials, and I really got to connect those kids. And there was so much curiosity going on, a lot of light bulbs going off. It was amazing. I loved it. It really made me want to be a teacher in the future. RPTM 326, taught by Doug Wenzel. This was the natural interpretation of history, or let me restart that. Interpretation of natural history. What this was, is this got us students out into the world, and we kind of got to look at trees, look at birds, look at plants, look at insects and all that stuff. And instead of looking at it in paper, we got to go out on trail walks. We got to go birding a bunch of times, and we really took in the outdoor world and used that as our content. And that man has done so many cool things. He can pick out everything that's like to the smallest microbe of soil to tell you what it is. I would love to have his depth of knowledge one day. And then AE 311, talked by Dr. Curry in the back, developing youth leadership. This class really taught me the ins and outs of FFA, how an education program works, all the history behind it, all of the things that I need to do as a teacher to really build up these students, to give them confidence, to give them leadership values and skills. And so, yeah, these are my top 3 courses that I've taken here. Some certifications. So I am certified to teach. So National Center for Agricultural Literacy allows me to tell you that I can teach agriculture in an English, math, science, and history course. I don't know if I will, because I want to stick to ag education, but that says I'm allowed to do that. Same thing with American Red Cross. I'm CPR, AED, and first aid certified. Please do not break a bone that sticks out. Do not spill a ton of blood, because then we will have 2 problems, because you'll be on the floor and I'll be on the floor passed out. Another thing is the National Safe Tractor and Machine Operator certification, which again allows me to tell you that I can teach you how to drive a tractor, which might go better than me actually trying to drive that tractor. But we'll get there one day. Some professional development workshops that I've been able to do in my semester here and over the years. A lot of opportunities given by the NAE, which is the National Association of Agriculture Educators. I got to go to San Antonio. I got to go to Harrisburg for a regional event. And then PAE, which is the Pennsylvania Association of Agriculture Educators. So it's the statewide group. They put on a lot of workshops for us as students. They allow us to come and visit and hang out with them and do everything that all other ag educators do as well. And then Penn State Teach Ag also puts on a couple of lessons for us. One being the Agriculture Inquiry Institution, which has pretty much allowed us to learn some lessons and some curriculum that we can take back into our classroom, that allows us to do inquiry-based lessons, which really drives the students to learn on their own. It was actually one of the cool things I got to take back to State College when I did some micro teaching over there. I got to take a lesson that I kind of incorporated in a different way. And I walked into the classroom and gave them the bell work and all that stuff, and gave them, the lab lesson. And they were like, okay, what's the answer? And I was like, that's a fun fact. I don't know. And it led to one really cool lesson that they all enjoyed in the end. They got to learn with me, and I got to learn with them. This is probably the most impactful part of Penn State. This was my seed semester that I got to do at Shavers Creek. Through Lori McLaughlin. She helped me get to be who I am through this. We got to go to Maine, Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, and New York. And we got to go explore a bunch of different environmental centers, a bunch of different Yeah, mainly environmental centers. There were some other leadership places that we got to go, but it was me and my 17 best friends that I made that semester and that I still talk to out here. Leah's one of them as well. And we got to do so much outdoor education, education on conservation, education on how pretty much everything outdoors and wildlife. And I could talk about this for hours and hours and hours, but I only have 30 minutes to talk about everything. So if you have any questions, please come talk to me. I will nerd out about it. But these are my best friends that I talked about this semester. Some amazing professors in that program as well. I will always advocate for them, what they've done for me and everybody else in that program. This is another really cool thing that we got to do this semester. I got to link up with the gear students, which are Sam, Abby, Benny, Jenny, Kara, and Cece. I believe, yeah, it's all 6 of them. And while we were there, so I got to run a really cool lesson where I got to teach them how to identify trees via using leaves. And the lesson went amazing. I was contacted by Lydia, who I believe is on Zoom. So shout out to Lydia. And she told me on their walk back that the students were pulling leaves off the ground, off of trees, and trying to identify the trees as they were walking back from my class to their classroom. So that was really cool for me to hear that they were taking what I taught them in the classroom right outside of the classroom immediately. So that was really, really cool to me. So last question, we're almost there. How am I prepared to maximize my student teaching internship opportunity? I get to go to Otto Eldred. I am so excited to go there. You guys have no idea. With Mr. Brandon Whitmer, we are going to be best friends, and I know he's on the Zoom too, so I can't wait to come up. And no, I am so excited because their program is one of the most unique ones in Pennsylvania, if not the country. It is super, super project based. So much hands-on learning. Again, all the strengths they have. The 3-circle model, they really hit on every single sector and they blend it all together. Hands-on learning like crazy. There's days where there's students that are in the plant science, ag biz, natural resources, welding, ag mechanics, and ag construction, all working in one big workshop, all one big classroom, all at the same time, doing so many different things. So as a future student teacher, it makes me a little bit nervous, but I'm so excited because it allows me to bounce around and nothing's going to be the same every day. And they also get their community involved really, really well. They pull in a lot of those community members to help those students learn for their SAE projects. And they also the community allows those students to go out and reach out to them as too. This is my course to study while I'm here. So as we see, so those are the classes I'll talk about, the career planning classes. A lot of them are the ones that these students are in different pathways as they're going through. And I'm kind of just looking over everything as they go through. But I also have specific lessons that I get to work individually with them as well. My 2 main classes that I'll have are Ag Science Explorations and Ag Mech Explorations, which are my 9th graders. So it's a little bit more broad for highlighting a lot of different subjects, as you can see going through here. Excuse me. Yeah, so I have 4 blocks, or it's technically 8 blocks, but it's kind of 4. It's a little weird how they do it there. But each one's 80 minutes long, so I have a little bit longer class time than most of my students. But it allows me to really dive deep during classes, which I'm very excited about. This PowerPoint scares the crap out of my cohort every time I show it them. They hate it and I love it because this is my organization scheme. This is to the day, to the block, from day 1 of teaching to when I arrive in Otto Eldred to the day that I leave. So this right here is my entire student teaching all in one slide, which I think is really cool. And it allows me to look at a broad spectrum. But yeah, this is how I organize, and I can't wait to take my organization into Otto Eldred. So some student teacher strengths that I believe that I have, my adaptability. This kind of started, I've always known I've been an adaptive person, but it really kind of highlighted back in March when I had my interview with my panel back there. And they saw the 3 schools that I chose, and they were like, they told me that they said, I think I can do better. And I said, okay, I understand. Where should I go? and they pointed me in the direction of exactly opposite of where I thought I was going to go. And so I went up to the Northwest, up in Otto Eldred and Erie, checked out some schools up there, fell in love with Otto Eldred, completely changed everything for me, and I adapted and overcame, and now I'm super excited to be up there. Organization, as you can see, I would rather spend 30 minutes working on a planner to get it right and get it one planner with everything on it than have to come back 6 months and figure out which of my 8 planners is the actual correct one. So my organization, I try and take very seriously. So I can't wait to take that over and and maybe enhance what they have after that. And relatable. I'm just a dude. I'm a guy out here living life, having fun. And I've had a bunch of experiences that allow me to connect with people really easily. And I feel like it makes me as a teacher relatable. It allows me to connect with these students really well. Yeah, I'm standing at the front of the classroom, but I am your friend. I'm your peer. I'm your coworker. I'm your cohort. I'm a colleague. I'm not the person. I'm not the teacher out here. So I find myself really easy to relate to people, to connect with people of all different types of areas. Some goals. So I kind of noticed as I was going through this, as I was practicing for this presentation, that these all 3 really blend together. And maybe we noticed it a little bit as I'm up here. I'm fast. I love to get stuff done. I love to work through things because I feel like I have so much that I want to cover and go over that I really just want to dive in really deep. But I have to reel it back sometimes because I have to understand that I have to give time to my students to really process some information. And so I had to give them time to figure concepts out. And that's one thing that I really want to work on, that I had to understand that I'm not going to be able to hit everything that I want to hit on today. Maybe a lesson takes, 3 days, which is going on to my next one, which is lesson pacing. I think I can do everything in one day. That's not the case. I have yet to have a lesson that I've highlighted all of the things that I have on my paper. So it's one thing that I've been really trying to get better at is understanding that things work slower than you think. And allowing for discussion. I like to keep things to the point going forward. If we're on a content area, I want to stay in that content area. But one thing that I heard one time somebody say, I forget who said it, I wish I remembered. They told me that the rabbit hole always comes back up at the same level. So if you go down in a rabbit hole, you're talking forever and ever, and you go in some weird conversations and you feel like you're 3 miles away from where you began, you have to remember that rabbit has to come back up on the same level. That rabbit hole has to come back up to surface level at some point. So you just got to wait till you get there. Maybe these students are learning some stuff on their way there. So yeah, it brings me to the end. And this is where I get to thank every single one of you for putting me here today. I know a lot of this has been on me, but I could not have done it at all without every single one of you out here in the seats and on Zoom. I want to thank all of the people at Shavers Creek. I want to thank my parents. I want to thank my friends. I want to thank my cohort. And I want to thank all of my colleagues in the back. I want to thank Maya for doing everything that she's done. I want to thank Thomas for everything that he's done. And I just want to, it's been awesome getting here. It's been really fun. It's been stressful, but I am here. There's an end of the road, and I'm so excited to be at Otto Eldred. And I just want to thank you all for being here today. I really appreciate that.
We will now start with our questions. Again, those of you in the online audience, if you don't mind typing those in the chat, Maya will help communicate those. I'll ask for a question first from our faculty member.
Gage, I would like to ask you to think deeply about the Gears Lockley experience and tell me, what did you specifically learn and how will it help you in student teaching or in beyond, student teaching and beyond? So I'm really curious to dig in deeper on what you took as a teacher from your pedagogy and your practice from that experience.
Absolutely. So one thing that I understood or that I learned from that is like students aren't the same. Not everybody has the same mind. Some people work faster, some people work slower, some people connect to some things that they really resilient or really resonate with, and others may not resonate with that. So the variability in a lesson plan is really kind of what I learned from that. Being able to adapt to my learners, being able to really show that there's more than just the one topic. Being able to connect with them in many, many different ways, be able to slow things down sometimes and maybe speed things up for other times. But being able to just connect to a diversified of minds of that might be out there is really kind of what I pulled mostly from that experience.
Thank you.
Another question?
You didn't specifically say this, Gage, but through your presentation and not that I know you, there's a lot of community building-esque energy in your cohort and the people and the students in SEED. And so what specific community building things would you do or would you include in your classroom to help get that same kind of community feel that is going to help your students grow and be productive members of society?
Absolutely. So one thing that I actually learned from Otto Eldred is they have at the end of the year, they have their thing called the extravaganza. And it's where they take all of their SAE projects that they have worked on their entire, year. Maybe it's been multiple years, maybe it's a semester, but whatever their finished product is, they get to showboat it in a way, in a show all, and they invite the entire community to come see what they've done. It allows the community to come in and see the classroom, see the program, see the students of what they're doing. It allows the students to really show themselves off. So in the future, it might be a networking event where these students are here, and maybe I invite a bunch of local industries and be like, hey, this student has a really cool welding project and you have a welding industry. Maybe, you connect with this student who might not want to go into college and go right into the workforce. Also within the classroom, whenever I have content that really relates to the industry or that's around me, I would love to bring in people that know a lot more than I do about the instructions and have them teach it and have them, they work with it every day. I'm just the jack of all trades that knows about everything. They know what's going on. So being able to bring that person in and really, like I've said many times, nerd out about that one content thing, maybe gets that one or two of those students to really like click with that more than I would have.
We do have one question from the chat from Harley Ramsey. What are the top 3 characteristics of a program that you want to pursue as a permanent placement after graduation?
Yeah, so one would be just community-based instruction, being able to pull that community in, being able to really resonate with them, have them supporting it 100%. My goal is to have the community reaching out to me like, how can I get into your classroom to connect with those students? Another thing would just be, man, I didn't think about this question. Another characteristic would have recruitment practices. So like having my students that really I want my program to speak for itself. I want my students to be able to talk to their younger sisters and brothers and have them in 6th grade already excited to come up to 9th grade to be able to have ag education with Mr. McCabe because of all the cool experiences that we get to do. And the third one kind of relates to that is just the experiential learning that I want my students to have, to be able to get them out and exploring the world, not just within these 4 walls. I want to be the classroom that those kids come in because they know that they're going to get much more than just content. They're going to get experience. One of the big trends these days is like, you got to have 20 years experience by the time you graduate high school to go into the job force. And I want those kids to have those experiences, not 20 years, but have enough experiences to be able to be like, well, I might not have this much, but I've done this, this, and this, and they can put that on a resume and really show it off.
We have another question from Lucy McLean. They say, way to go, Gage. Proud of you. Green heart. How do you see environmental education and agricultural education overlapping? Are the pedagogies the same, different, or something in between?
I would say they're mostly the same. So the nice thing is agriculture education and environmental science and education really blend together. It allows me, so in my plant science class, I would probably start out with it being its own just kind of within the plant science class, but in the future, I would hope to build enough content in my mind that I can have it as its own separate curriculum that those kids can eventually take and really get them outside and explore all of the global changes and stuff within that environmental science. So yeah, I say they walk along the same path and they really work well together. There's a lot of content areas that kind of merge within each other and overlap a lot with it.
Hey, I have a follow-up question on that. And I'm gonna kind of dig into your work from AE 413 as you talk about program planning. How do we make decisions on what curriculum we teach in a career and technical education program of agriculture?
So I would say it's not mainly my decision. It's kind of what I'm hearing from my local advisory committee and my occupational advisory committee. What's going on in the industry around me. I want to pull those community members, put them all together in a room and have them pretty much tell me, hey, this is what I need in the future. These are the kind of students that I need to come into my industry. So it's not necessarily my decision, but I kind of go off of what they're advising me to do as for curriculum and what comes on after that.
Okay, you shared so much about what you're excited for at Auto Elder. What is the one thing that you want to make sure you accomplish, and how are you preparing for that?
Only one.
Yeah, you can only pick one. What's the most important thing that you?
I really want to get their aquaponics system up and running again. They have it. It's been a little hit or miss the last couple of years, but I really want to get it up and going. I want to build kind of a network of students that really want to explore it, you know, after I do leave after these 15 weeks. I want to get in there. I want to get it running. I want to get the content behind it. I want it to be a huge part of their program because I think aquaponics is a future, is the future of, you know, growing microgreens and lettuce and all those vegetables. So being able to really connect with some students, maybe, you know, 2 or 3 to start, and then they pass it on to the younger generation that's coming up. Really just getting a solid foundation of what's going on there.
Do you have another question from the Zoom from Kensinger? Great job, Gage. What will you do? Hello. To stay current regarding the ever-changing world of agriculture as you strive to provide the most up-to-date curriculum for your students?
So yeah, I plan on being a lifelong learner. I know as educators we hear that a lot, but I truly plan on being a lifelong learner, going to conventions, going to conferences, hearing what people have to say, listening to others, really just diving deep with some people that I know, staying up to date on research, just kind of listening to what's going on around me and not surrounding myself within my program that I have within the 4 walls. I wish my classroom would have glass walls, hence like my greenhouse, because I want to see what's going on out there so that I can just adapt and overcome and change things as the world's changing.
And there's one more question from your BFF, Brandon Whitmer. He says, congratulations, Mr. McCabe. We are so excited to have you become a part of our program this spring. Students continue to ask, when do you start? What are you most excited about for this spring?
Being with the students, being in a classroom. I know that's generic, I know it's broad, but being in that classroom, I have been learning for that for so long. And just being able to work with students, be with students, and just have those light bulb moments of a student going, oh my gosh, that makes sense. I cannot wait for those moments, and I hope I have a lot of them.
I think that's an appropriate place to end. Can you help me in congratulating Mr. McCabe?